an alien invasion. Is it biblical? Of course it is.
Clearly, I'm not here today as a fact witness.
You can Google it.
I think you just use the Bible, do whatever the hell you like.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Welcome to Mystery Bible Theater 3000. My name is Caleb Hegg. With me, of course, my lovely assistant, Rob Vanhoff. All right. So today we have something that I've been holding for a long time. This guy has been sent to us once again by our good friend Stephanie. She wins the award for most videos played on Mystery Bible Theater 3000.
She's like tip of the spear.
That's, I mean, I think we should put her on the payroll. I think she's basically doing our work for us. Here's the deal: is that this guy, I've been holding this for so long, and the reason why is because it seems to me. I don't know if this is a TikToker. Is that what they call? Is that what the kids are calling them these days? A TikToker or Instagrammer or whatever. But basically, he seems like a. Here's the feeling I get. Now I could be totally wrong on this. Here's the feeling I get. Maybe this kid goes to, and I say kid, he's probably early 20s, maybe late teens, early 20s. He probably goes to a charismatic church. He probably loves the Lord, and he's finding stuff.
What you're painting here is best case scenario, generous.
But he's mind blown by a lot of different things that are just nonsense. And so it seems to me that he knows how to find stuff, though. And maybe he's reading stuff. And the reason why is because in a different video, I didn't clip this video, in a different video, he looks at the Dead Sea Scrolls. And he actually shows his screen at one point, and he's reading what seems to be a legit representation of the Dead Sea Scrolls. So he's able to find stuff.
Is he reading in Hebrew? Does he know Hebrew?
Oh, definitely not. But here's what he does: is he puts this like ethereal music, like mystery music behind himself.
What good is it if I have a video with really cool pictures of ancient manuscripts and I'm just telling you what it means, but I myself can't read them?
Well, he's reading out of an English translation. It looks like maybe he's using Flint Abegg translation.
Okay.
But the point simply is that he puts this mystery kind of music behind himself. He has all these pictures going at the same time.
Like and then 119 kind of thing.
Kind of, except for he does shorts. And it looks like he's getting a lot of views. Which is fine. I mean, I think that's what he's trying to do.
What he's going for.
Exactly. So I don't know how much we should actually take.
Us on the other hand.
We're not
36, doing it. Man. We hit 36. It's like, wow, we nailed it.
Some guy last week on our main show just left a comment, "Don't quit your day job." And I wrote back and I was like, "This is our day job, man." We don't have anything to quit, man. This is it. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Anyway, the point simply is that I don't know how serious we're supposed to take this. However, this could also be maybe like a pulse, a finger on the pulse of the younger religious, what I like to call American Christian generation. They go to church on Sunday. They got a lot of feelings. A whole lot of feelings, The counterpart is the woke, triggered liberal. And so these guys are the charismatic, I feel a lot of things about God kind of people. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say that, it sounds like I'm degrading. I think that feelings are a very important part of faith. I actually do believe that. But feelings have to stem from truth. And so truth has to come first. And it sure sounds to me like this is not exactly it. Now, we have been reprimanded for not having a true mystery Science Theater 3000 view when we kick over to watch videos. I would love to fix that. And maybe at some point when I go over to Rob's neck of the woods, we'll try to fix this for good. But you're going to have to bear with us on our view for now. Okay, here we go. Let's listen to what this young man has to say.
It truly is a mystery what would happen to those women who would bear the children of fallen angels. After being taught hidden knowledge from the heavens, these women would end up becoming the founders of sorcery. These were mothers of entire generations defiled by magic. Enoch says how the angels teach these women stuff like incantations and the dividing of roots, which is medicine. All this forbidden knowledge lands these women a uniquely strange punishment. These women would become the first ever mermaids. Their punishment was to be turned into sirens, bound to the deep, deep blue sea. Of course, these were during the days of Noah. My question to you is, can a mermaid survive a flood? The siren is one of the oldest myths on earth. Sailors have always had these tales of beautiful girls who then turn into monsters who then drag them down to the bottom of the ocean. See, once upon a time, these beautiful sirens were the wives of fallen angels. And for what they had learned on earth, they were ultimately banished to the ocean.
There you have it. So ultimately, I think what he's getting at here is perhaps sirens are real because Enoch says that the fallen angels had intercourse with the women who then became magicians.
After teaching them forbidden knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
And magic. And yeah, this is where it leads.
Right.
This is
yes.
If you're a Heiserite, if you're a one of these, this is where it leads. Yeah, this is the logical end. You're going to end up with a church full of people enthusiastic about this kind of thing.
Let's break this down for just 1 second, though, for those who might not watch this show very often. Okay, so obviously our Friday Mystery Bible Theater 3000 is supposed to look at wackadoo, like the crazy wackadoo stuff.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect candidate for.
Oh, absolutely. But the point simply here for me is this: you have someone who all of this could be seen as totally plausible if you're taking the book of Enoch or any other non-canonical book and saying, this not only has stock, but we have to take it as true.
See, when you abandon the canon,
right?
When you have a low view of canon and a high view of ancient mythology, right? So you lower the specialness of canon and you raise up the status of ancient mythology. There are no constraints. So a Heiserite has no way, in the same way that the church in America is challenged by woke. It's like, how are we going to stand against it when we've already allowed, female bishops. We've already allowed, and then like, okay, we're going to ordain, same-sex couples or, things like that. It's like they think that they're like flirting with this liberalism to the point that they have nothing to stand on when it comes to when the tidal wave of it's like, like a man a man can be a woman, and there is no definition for like all this craziness. The church, on what grounds is the church going to stand? In the same way, the Heiserites and those who are of this kind of Enochic centrality for understanding the gospel, they are in the similar situation. They have no constraint. On what grounds are they going to offer a correction to someone who's pushing mermaids as surviving the flood, as the offspring of their interpretation of Genesis 6, etc.?
Yeah, I think we need to pause real quick and just let people know what you mean by Heiserites. For those who might not know, Michael Heiser is he's now passed.
He died last year.
But Heiser was very big into understanding angelology and demonology from a standpoint of the Bible with other non-canonical sources mixed in, like Enoch, and a lot of what he taught,
ancient, Near Eastern, and extra canonical Jewish,
right?
Like both those.
And actually, I should say this: we get a lot of videos, I have a lot of videos in the bank of Michael Heiser that people have sent us as candidates for this show. and things that he said. And the reason that we don't play them is because Rob has asked to hold those since he is writing a book that is forthcoming. We're still waiting for a release.
It's been that way for a couple.
Rob,
Lord willing, when it comes out, it'll be good.
But the point is that Rob is writing a book that deals with a significant amount of these different things. And so this is one of the reasons that you haven't seen Heiser highlighted.
The
on
reason it's taken so long is
3000.
because you go to address one thing and it's like, oh my goodness, he said this, and this also. Okay. I don't want to be a chaser. I'm not, so it's like, okay, so
you and I are so different.
I realize
like
what
that.
needs to be presented is just a robust biblical canonical worldview in and of itself and then once you adopt that perspective, you start to see where Heiser and those, the idea of this Deuteronomy 32 worldview that he pushes is really a sensationalist claim that was not supported by the evidence, but he took, I can show you where he's quoting Dead Sea Scrolls that do not exist. And why it is because he quoted only secondary sources. So instead of actually going to look at the original scroll, he's quoting a guy who quotes a guy who made a mistake like 50 years ago. But then he uses that as evidence to prop up some thing. I
love how this got into a Heiser debate. But here's the thing:
I coined the term Heiserite. So that's what I call him.
The interesting thing is that
because I'm pretty sure this guy's read Heiser. Here's why: I haven't met anybody in again, it's a limited amount of people that I've met. I don't live everywhere. People this enthusiastic about this kind of idea has to have at least one Heiser book on their shelf. You know what I mean?
Unseen Realms. So Unseen Realms is on this kid's shelf.
Yeah.
I think that what the rise of people who have really become enamored with Heiser and his work is staggering. This is not, by the way, just Heiser was very big in the Hebrew roots in the Messianic realm, right? In fact, when Heiser would come to Tacoma, he would actually hit several different Messianic synagogues in the area. They all wanted him to come out and speak. But then he was also big in the church. In fact, I saw one of my old Sunday school teachers in Home Depot recently. And I said, we were chatting and he said, hey, listen, I got an idea. You and I, we should put together a small conference. We can do it at my house. There's this guy I've been reading. He's amazing. We'll have everybody come over. We'll drink whiskey. We'll smoke cigars and we'll just have him teach. His name is Michael Heiser. Yeah. He's just been blowing my mind. And I said, well, I don't drink and I don't smoke. And we could talk about Heiser. But the point in that story is simply to show that you have people in the Messianic realm that are very taken with Heiser's work. And then you have people in the mainstream Christian church, because the Sunday school teacher whom I'm speaking of, he has no ties whatsoever to the Messianic. Yeah, yeah. He's part of a non-denominational
there's some
Christian
good
church.
Marketing. He did great marketing. He would travel all over the place. He did the same thing. He followed the same path that like Nehemiah Gordon did, or Michael Rood, where you travel. You're a circuit rider. They have a team that schedules a bunch of visits. It's how classic rock bands, before the internet.
Kiss,
same
baby,
thing.
Kiss.
They just tour and tour and tour and sell their records. And, it's a business model, and it's got enough sizzle. But for those who don't know, Heiserites interpret a Heiserite is genuine. How I would define it is a contemporary Christian, probably call themselves a Christian loosely, who interpret Genesis 6, the sons of God, as non-human.
Yes. Yeah.
That's and then they look at things like
But
Job or Psalm 82 or Deuteronomy 32.
There is a subculture, and not even necessarily, like, I think that there is a subculture of Christianity, which, then this came around before I knew anything about Heiser. There used to be this it was a radio show that I used to listen to every once in a while, and it was I don't even remember what it was called, but it was on I think it was on a mainstream radio station, AM radio station. And it was at nighttime. It was at like 9 o'clock at night at my time. And it was these guys who would talk about all of these different, like,
was it Coast to Coast with Art Blakey? Or
it definitely could have been, but they were always talking about aliens. They were always aliens and like, and like how the government was hiding
shift, and I would listen to that.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is,
I don't remember the guy's name. It was Art something, but it was called Coast to Coast. It was
Coast
3 hours long.
Right. Yes,
and
exactly.
he would have like Whitley Strieber, who's the guy who wrote. He said he was.
But the thing is that they would talk about aliens, and oftentimes they would talk about Genesis 6 and Enoch and all this. And so this was before
Art Bell. Was it Art Bell?
It might have been Art Bell. But the point here is simply this, that this was before Heiser's like Unseen Realms came onto the scene.
No, yeah. Because Heiser was influenced by these guys. Like the throughout the 90s, you had 80s and 90s, you had, what was the guy? Zachariah Siten, who was one of these. I don't think he was a Christian, but he wrote all this stuff about ancient Sumer, ancient Mesopotamia, arguing that the ancient Mesopotamian civilizations were talking with aliens, right? And that their mythology was like about how aliens had created humanity, like they came to Earth and seeded the Earth. And so they were telling the true stories of where life came from, was aliens came in. And so the sons of God are said to be these aliens that came and created, humanity.
George Knapp and George Noory.
Yeah, that's the one. Art Bell and George Noory. George Noory took over from Art Bell, I think.
Yes. Tonight, Cattle Mutilation Mystery, Afterlife Communications. Boy, this is a gold
night after night. They hammer on this stuff. Okay, but the guy Sitchin is kind of the father of what I would call, how like Star
Wars
this
thing
has,
called the Dead Sea.
Fan fiction. You could, all these stories about what happened like in the Star Wars universe that's not part of the canonical movies, but they kind of have to fit in, right? They can't write a story about Luke Skywalker's hidden years, right? Like what was Luke when he was 12? So they'll write a story about Luke Skywalker when he was like 12 years old.
Right.
And they have to write it so it fits in to the canon, even though it's not a George Lucas. It's just a fan fiction.
Yeah. But this brings up,
that's what Enoch is, like a fan fiction for the Tanakh. That's one thing we need to, but I see that if you Google like books, there are authors who are making tons of money off of like this Genesis 6 Sons of God type of theme. And they write all sorts of what I call fan fiction, and people buy it because it's kind of like like a Harry Potter or a C.S. Lewis where you get series of books like the Sons of God and like the mermaids now, like it's, and people, so, I don't care if, the idea of people reading, otherworldly kind, what do they call it? Science fiction kind of things. But when they start saying this is the Bible and you start,
I think so that's the thing, is that, like, let's go back to the video that we watched today, because ultimately that's where we're supposed to be at. But I don't know if the young man in this video, because I don't know anything about him, but I don't know if he would say, well, Enoch is canonical, or if he would just say, hey, there's a lot of truth wrapped up in the legends and the myths, and so maybe these things can be true. But ultimately, as believers, and I think that this is really where Rob and I are coming from, as believers, one of the things that we have to do is we anchor ourselves in our presupposition, and the presupposition that we have is God is, therefore we are. God has communicated with man, right? We have to start somewhere. What's the communication? Now, there are all sorts of religions that believe that, right? So, I mean, if you take the Judeo-Christian religions such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they all go back to the beginning source of the Torah, right? Ultimately, they go back to the Torah. And that includes all the offshoots. But if you look at Hinduism, if you look at Buddhism, if you look at, other religions, they're all going to have a different presupposition that starts in a different place. Do they believe in God or gods? Yes. And do they believe that God has communicated with mankind? Yes, they do. So ultimately, the presupposition that we have as believers is God has communicated through the Torah and through the Word of God. This is why canon is so vitally important for us as believers. We have to understand what canon is. We have to be rooted in that. And this is why I think that the rift between the Protestants and the Catholics has grown so deep is because there is a difference in canon now. And the reason that we have such a rift between
which means a different vision of church hierarchy and authority. Right. Those go together.
Now you have people in the Hebrew roots movement that want to go back to the Sumerian view, which is that only the Torah is the thing that is canonical, and everything else everything else is subpar compared to the Torah. Now, I agree that everything has to agree with the Torah because it was the first thing written down, right? But ultimately, the point simply is this. If you're, with the Hebrew rooters now trying to add books like Enoch, like Jubilees and whatnot to the canon, we have a significant issue, which is that all of a sudden you have a different authority. If you're going to come at me with the idea that Enoch is canonical and and that it is inspired by the Holy Spirit, we have a completely different argument now because if we accept that, we have major problems. And this is it. The video that we just watched is it. Where is it going to stop at that point?
And what we need to, hopefully helpful for our listeners is that if someone is citing, well, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the version of Exodus says this, or the Dead Sea Scrolls version of Deuteronomy says this, you have to pause them and say, okay, do you realize that there is no fixed Torah text at Qumran? It is always fluid. That means every fragment, every different copy of Deuteronomy, if you compare them with each other, they're very different. If you look at the various copies of Exodus and compare them with each other, there is no stable text. And the reason why there's no stable text in the Qumran Torah documents is because they did not view. First of all, they had an axe to grind against the Jerusalem scribes, right, from where we get the Masoretic text, but they had a different view of prophecy. They thought the individual person had that the place of the revelation, of the prophetic revelation, was in a living person who then communicated the meaning of the Torah.
Mormons.
And so what they're writing down is the fluid understanding. Whereas the scribes that we call the Proto-Masoretic scribes in Jerusalem, they didn't use the word Masorah yet. That's a later term, but we call them Proto because the texts that we have from that tradition show stability, like incredible stability over 1,000-year period. I mean, that's the result of, look, we have to preserve the written text as we've received it because we do not have authority to change it. So that goes back to the first century situation, why the Jerusalem scribes had a different view of written revelation than the scribes of the Essenes at Qumran. Yes. Different view of the role of written. And those who are of the Reformed tradition, like Caleb, like you and I are, and the Protestants, we have slowly learning how to articulate a kind of affirmation for, like, we're siding with the Jerusalem scribes when it comes to the Old Testament. Yep. We're leaning, and we do at TorahResource Institute, we do what we call advanced or continued Hebrew reading or continued Greek reading, where we're looking at the questions of text criticism And the idea is there is a care to say, okay, given all these texts, like what is our kind of philosophy of Scripture, is that there is a truth being communicated that if the ideal is this, is if we had the original epistle to the Romans, right, from Paul, let's say we had it, like this is it, that we as believers would want to copy it precisely.
Right.
We would never want to change, but we know that, well, we don't have that original. What we have is copies from different times and places. And so we have to kind of study those and say, okay, what does it look like given all this? And there's a whole science of how do you evaluate if someone, is there a definite article in one where it's not in the other, where it doesn't have a theological difference, but it is a difference in the written text. We have to evaluate all these things. And I'm so thankful to God. We have like your Daniel Wallace, we have, and all the people that in the world of Koine Greek are focused on this problem. They're believers in Christ. Right. They value the canon of the Scriptures, and they're dealing with the hardest problems that we have. When someone says, oh, I don't know if I trust my Bible, or you're telling me not to trust my Bible, or, that's, when you become a believer, you become a beneficiary of the labors of all the believers that came before you. And we can't just all of a sudden be a free radical thinker and try to think that we can just destroy the fruits of the labors of believers, because I'm not saying that we have to take, like we had a video about Martin Luther, doesn't mean you have to agree with everything Luther did, but we are called to discern, the wheat from the chaff. So anyway, I'm waxing long on that.
It's all good. I think that we've hit it. I think that the main issue here, and the reason that we see such wackadoo stuff like this, let's just boil it down to the core of it, is canonical issues. Is because of canonical issues.
My hope is this guy's got a pastor who's going to hear this and say, hey, man.
He's got a lot of videos. This is not the only video.
The church does not believe in mermaids. Like this is nonsense.
Right. Yep.
You've watched too many movies. Or was there a mermaid? Isn't there like a mermaid, like a little mermaid or whatever?
Merman.
Yeah.
Merman. Okay. So if you have a video that you want us to look at on Mystery Bible Theater 3000, see Hegg at TorahResource.com, CHEGG at TorahResource.com. Please do not forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I know it sounds weird, but it does actually help us. If you're already subscribed, good on you. Just like this video, that helps us too. All right. Until next time, thank you so much for being a part of this. Don't miss our show, our main show on Wednesdays. It's live 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you can't catch it, it's always on YouTube and other platforms as well, including Rumble. And we will be back hopefully next week, depending on what we get. We'll be back next week for more of it. All right. Thanks so much, guys.